Someday, something's going to happen. Someday, I'm going to be a pilot. I just know it. I just know right there.
In fact, I'll say this because I think I've said this to you before. You know one thing about anybody who's been in the Marine Corps. There are good people and there are bad people in the Marine Corps. But you know one thing for sure, they didn't take the easy way out. Nobody goes into the Marine Corps thinking it'll be easy.
That was my inspiration, and really the Battle of Britain. And the pilots, and so that was all I really ever wanted to be, was a fighter pilot.
At that time, the recruiting center was in the post office in downtown Miami. And I went down to fill all the paperwork out, and then after you do all that, they send you in for a test. And at that time, he said I didn't make it because my eyesight wasn't good enough. So I went home, and I think for 3 months, all he did was eat carrots. Yeah, really, I did. And went back and passed the test, and now this is, I said, early part of March. This is the really part. I kid about this. I said, I never trust another Marine sergeant. He said, you'll have plenty of time to graduate in June before they call you up. 10 days later, I got my notice. Report to Beaufort, South Carolina, or here's your bus tickets going to Paris Island. So I've always kidded. I said, I never trusted a Marine sergeant since then.
In Logan, being Hispanic families, a lot of them were large families, and you would put a little flag in your window how many you had serving in the military, a star, one person. We had several that had 4 stars, 3 and 4 stars. So there was quite a representation in the armed forces from our neighborhood. In fact, one of the first ones that was killed in action was from the Logan neighborhood. Yeah, I think he got killed in Italy. His name was John Arsati, I believe was his last name. So we lost one of the first ones, out of our neighborhood. And they lived just about maybe 150 steps away from my house. I
think one of the greatest stories that I like is the fact that during 44's election year, and us our 340-some people in our squadron, the representatives of the United States came out, and they were island hopping where all they could, the troops, about their right to vote, and the absentee ballot, send a vote back. And they were coming out to take the votes of absentee ballots, have the men make them out, and then take them back to the United States for the presidential election. Well, we had about a half-hour speech. They had a muster, called us all up, about what we're fighting for, our right to vote, and we should vote. And they dismissed us and told us to go vote and go back to your duty. So we did. And about an hour and a half later, we got another call for another muster to come up. And the guy went through it. He said, I just went through all this about your right to vote. Excuse me. And he said, of 340-some people, I've only got 47 votes. And he said, I'm going to try it again. I want you all to go vote. And the major in charge of us there, of the squadron, said there won't be any change. He said, that's all we have. At 21 or over, everybody else, 20 and 19.
Just before we were married, he received his wings, and his commission into the Marine Corps, and I pinned his wings on him.
Marine Corps wives, or wives of Marine Corps career officers or enlisted, they have to be strong, they have to be self-sufficient, because when the husbands go away, they've got to be husband, father, and mother. They have to take care of everything. And they cope. And if you're in an area where there are other military, there's a huge support system.
Okay.
And the biggest length of time that I can remember was when we were in Tallahassee, and that was my mother's hometown. And so she had support with people that she had grown up with. But they're strong. I mean, Marine Corps wives are strong. Don't mess with a Marine Corps wife.
That reminds me of another thing. Once when I was, you have your officer of the day. which means when the commanding officer goes home for the evening, there are certain things, somebody needs to be there to man the phones and to be the officer that's there. It's a 24-hour operation. So the officer of the day, I was officer of the day, and that meant that you stayed there for 24 hours. And I was, my wife came out to the base with my son in an infant seat. They didn't have the kind of, you know, it wasn't even required that you have a seat for a baby, but she had one of those things called an infant seat. And she brought this little baby boy out, and she had, in order to get me a hot meal, because I was going to have a sandwich or something, she brought the biggest investment we had made in kitchen utensils, an electric skillet. And she had cooked my dinner in an electric skillet and brought it out to the base for me. Now that was really above and beyond for, you didn't see many guys that got hot meals. All the guys that were around at that time just couldn't get over that she had done that. So.
It was really funny. We were living in Garden Grove when he went to Vietnam, and the next door neighbors were very wonderful to me, and they had children the same age as my children were. And, Christy, my youngest one, was about 3 years old at that time. And Gene came, that's the husband from next door, came over one day, and he asked her where her father was. Well, at that time, Victor was sending me tapes, and they were on the reel-to-reel tapes, you know. So he would send me tapes once a week, and he would read the kids' bedtime stories and tell them stories, you know, that he would make up and things like that. So it was pretty nice because, you know, they heard him all the time. So when she came over, he said, "Well, Christy, where's your dad?" And she pointed to it, and she says, "He's in there."
A guy in our squadron was marrying a member of the Irvine family. And we were invited to the party, and it was in Corona del Mar. So he had to get a sitter. Well, the base had a nursery that you could drop your child off. For whatever reason, and I don't remember if it was because it was a certain day of the week or whatever it was, the base nursery wasn't available. Now, I'm a first lieutenant, which is pretty low on the totem pole. But I walked into the guardhouse they just happened to be nearby the nursery. And a couple of sergeants there on duty said, and I explained to them, "Gee, I'm really bummed because the nursery is closed and my wife and I wanted to go to this wedding." They said, "Don't worry, Lieutenant, we'll take care of them." And they did.
I think in my parents' first 4 years of their marriage, I think they were only together like 15 or 18 months, which is, you know, when you think about it, that was the reality of a military existence in World War II. So when the father goes away, and it was fathers in those days, you know, the mom steps up and runs things, and you know, and so it created an interesting family dynamic.
I'll never forget that he sent me a picture, and it showed his helicopter, and evidently he'd been shot at, and the mortar went right up between his legs. He said he could feel the heat on his legs, but it didn't, and it must have gone through the rotors of the helicopter he was in, because the helicopter didn't come down. And I was looking at that, and I thought, somebody's trying to kill my husband, who is a really nice man. They don't even know him, and yet they're trying to kill him. And I guess that's what war is about. It's not easy to go through something like that. I really feel for the young wives that have to go through it with their husbands in the Middle East. It's not easy.
And that's the beauty, really, of the Marine Corps family as well as the United States. It's perspectives that bring us together as a country.
Well, as I said before, the camaraderie thing is very real. And the reason is because you counted on that person. You knew that you might face death, and that person was either going to be with you or weren't going to be with you. So once it was established that they were with you, if they were Marines, you don't ever forget that. That's a bond I don't think you ever forget.
It's something that we have that nobody else has. And here again, esprit de corps, it's that closeness, it's that brotherhood that we have that no other service has. Mm-hmm. They try, but they'll never have it.
I think this project will help other people learn more about what the base meant to Orange County and the veteran community. But it could be a kid like me listening to my dad's tapes years after he died. It could be a grandchild who's listening to somebody who flew in the Korean War or in the Vietnam War 20 years from now. It's treasured. I think it's important that the veterans who are ahead of my generation get that time now before they're gone. But I think once again, we all got to bring different perspectives, depending where we serve, who we were with, and where we came from. And that's the beauty, really, of the Marine Corps family as well as the United States. It's perspectives that bring us together as a country.